I was standing by the bar at my 10-year high school reunion when my brother walked up and said the words that would make the next 5 minutes the most satisfying of my entire life. Still working that government job? Must be nice having all that job security, no real pressure to perform. My brother's boss, a Marine Corps colonel, standing 15 feet away, stopped mid-conversation and turned to look at us. My brother didn't notice. He was performing, too busy making sure everyone within earshot knew that he was successful and I was something less than that. Don't get me wrong. Public sector has its place. Somebody's got to push papers, right? It's just not the same as real business, real competition, real achievement. The colonel started walking toward us. My brother still didn't see him. Some of us chose the hard path. Building something. Creating value. Making real money. But hey, your pension will be nice. The colonel stopped directly behind my brother, stood at attention, and saluted me. A full military salute, crisp, formal, the kind you give to a superior officer. My brother's voice died mid-sentence. He turned slowly, saw his boss, the man who'd been his direct supervisor for 3 years, holding a salute to his younger sister. "Colonel Patterson?" I said, returning the salute. "Good to see you, sir. How's the new position?" "Excellent, Major Davis, though I should be asking you that question. Congratulations on the promotion. Lieutenant Colonel suits you." My brother's face went completely white. "Let me back up. My name is Sarah Davis. I'm 32 years old, and my older brother Eric has spent the last 15 years convinced that I'm wasting my potential in a mediocre government job." He's not entirely wrong about the government job part. I do work for the government. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. I've spent the last 14 years serving my country in increasingly senior positions, currently overseeing a critical intelligence operation that I can't discuss in detail, but that directly impacts national security. But Eric doesn't know that. Eric knows. I work for the government. That's all he knows, because that's all he's ever bothered to ask. Eric is 2 years older than me. Growing up, he was the golden child, the successful one, the one our parents bragged about. He went to a good business school, landed a job at a defense contractor right after graduation, worked his way up to senior business development manager. He makes good money, drives a BMW, lives in a nice house in the suburbs, has the life our parents always envisioned. And he's never let me forget that he chose the harder path. It started small. When I joined the Air Force at 18, fresh out of high school, Eric's response was predictable. "The military? Really? I mean, if you need structure and don't know what else to do, I guess it's fine. But you're smart enough for college. You should think bigger." I was thinking plenty big. I'd been accepted to the Air Force Academy. Full scholarship. One of the most competitive schools in the country. But I didn't tell Eric that. Didn't tell him because he'd already made up his mind about what my choice meant. 4 years at the academy. Graduated in the top 15% of my class. Commissioned as a second lieutenant. Started my career as an intelligence officer. When I told the family I'd graduated and been commissioned, Eric's response was, "So you're staying in? I thought the academy was just for the free education. You're actually making a career out of this? That's the plan." "Huh. Well, I guess the pension is good. And you'll never have to worry about getting fired. Job security." That became his narrative. I'd chosen the safe, easy path. The government job with the guaranteed paycheck and the pension at the end. Meanwhile, he was out there in the real world, taking risks, making things happen, building a real career. Never mind that I was leading teams of analysts in high-pressure situations. Never mind that I was making decisions that impacted operations overseas. Never mind that I was serving my country in ways that actually mattered. Eric measured success by salary and job title, and by those metrics, he was winning. He made $90,000 a year as a senior analyst. I made $62,000 as a first lieutenant. He had an MBA from a decent school. I had a military commission. He worked for a private company. I worked for the government. Family dinners became a showcase for Eric's achievements. New promotion. New client. New bonus. Our parents hung on every word. When it was my turn to share, I'd mention a new assignment or a new responsibility. The reactions were, they released it. The reactions, let's go down. The reactions, let's take more a little bit. Not means to release to try, but they were tepid. That's nice, honey. More responsibility. Make sure they're compensating you fairly. They weren't asking about compensation because they cared. They were asking because they pitied me. Poor Sarah. Working her government job. Probably making poverty wages. Probably struggling. I wasn't struggling. I was advancing steadily. Made captain at 25. Took on more complex assignments. Led larger teams. Got selected for advanced training in intelligence analysis and strategic planning. But I couldn't talk about most of it. Classification, security clearances. The nature of military intelligence work means you can't share details, can't brag about achievements, can't explain what you actually do all day. So my family filled in the blanks with their own assumptions. And their assumptions were that I sat at a desk somewhere, shuffled papers, and collected a modest paycheck. Eric, meanwhile, moved up in his company, made 6 figures, bought his nice house, married his college girlfriend, had 2 kids, built the American dream. And at every family gathering, he'd ask about my government job with that tone, that slightly pitying, slightly condescending tone that said he was glad he'd chosen differently. Still doing the military thing? Still working at the Pentagon? How's the bureaucracy treating you? I'd give vague answers. It's good, staying busy. Couldn't say more. The worst part was that Eric genuinely thought he was being supportive. He'd give me career advice, suggest I should think about transitioning to the private sector, tell me his company was always looking for people with security clearances. You'd make so much more money, and the work would actually be challenging, not just government paperwork. I made major at 29, youngest in my year group. Got assigned to a critical position overseeing intelligence operations for an entire theater. Managed a team of 40 analysts and operators. Made decisions that impacted real-world operations. Couldn't tell Eric any of that. Just said I'd gotten promoted. Another step up in the government job. His response? Oh, like a manager? That's great. Managing a team in government is probably good experience. Might help if you ever want to move to the private sector. I'd been managing teams for years, making life and death decisions, operating at a level of responsibility that would terrify most business managers. But Eric saw a government job and assumed I was doing something simple, something safe, something beneath what he was doing. The breaking point came 3 months ago. Family dinner at our parents' house. Eric's company had just won a huge contract with the Department of Defense. $300 million over 5 years. He'd been part of the team that pitched it. He talked about it for an hour. The strategy, the presentation, the negotiation. Our parents were mesmerized. Even I had to admit it was impressive work. Then he mentioned something that made my blood run cold. The contract is the Air Force Special Programs Office. They need updated intelligence infrastructure. We're going to revolutionize how they process and analyze data. I knew that office, knew that program, knew it intimately. Because I was one of the senior officers who'd been consulted on the requirements. I'd sat in meetings about this exact contract, had provided input on what capabilities we needed. I'd been in the room when they discussed Eric's company's proposal, had raised concerns about their technical approach, had recommended they go with a different vendor. We'd been overruled by higher-ups for budgetary reasons. But I'd been part of the decision-making process. And Eric had no idea. No idea little sister had been in meetings about his big achievement. No idea that I operated at a level where I influenced hundreds of millions of dollars in contracting decisions. That's great, I said carefully. Sounds like important work. Oh, it is. This is going to support some really critical operations. We'll be working directly with senior Air Force leadership, colonels, generals, the people who actually make decisions. I worked with those same people every day, sat in their meetings, briefed them on intelligence assessments, got tasked by them directly. But I couldn't say that. Classification, security, the invisible nature of my actual work. So I just nodded. Sounds challenging. It is. Way more complex than what you're probably used to. No offense. I'm sure your job is important in its own way. But this is different. This is high-level stuff. High-level stuff. Like managing intelligence operations for an entire region wasn't high-level. Like briefing generals wasn't high-level. Like holding a top-secret clearance with special access programs wasn't high-level. I excused myself from dinner early, drove home, sat in my apartment, a modest one-bedroom that I could easily afford on my salary, but that looked poor compared to Eric's suburban house, and made a decision. I was done hiding, done being vague, done letting my brother think I was some low-level government clerk. The reunion was coming up, my 10-year high school reunion. Eric would be there. He'd gone to the same high school, graduated 2 years ahead of me. And I knew something he didn't know. His boss, the Marine Corps colonel, who ran the business development division at his company, was also from our hometown, had also gone to our high school, would also be at the reunion. Colonel Patterson and I had worked together on joint operations. We'd been in meetings together. He knew exactly what I did and what my rank was. We had professional respect for each other. Eric had no idea we knew each other. No idea his boss and his little sister operated in the same circles. I decided it was time he found out. The reunion was at a hotel ballroom downtown. 200 people from my graduating class, and the classes immediately before and after. I wore a simple black roux dress, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed military officer. Eric showed up in a suit, expensive, well-tailored. He looked successful, and he knew it. We made small talk with old classmates, everyone asking the standard questions. What do you do now? Where do you live? Are you married? Eric's answers were polished, rehearsed. I'm in business development at a major defense contractor. We just closed a $300 million deal with the Air Force. It's challenging work, but I love it. My answers were deliberately vague. I work in the DC area. Government job. It keeps me busy. I could see people's eyes glaze over. Government job. Boring. Not impressive. Not like Eric's defense contractor position. Colonel Patterson arrived around 8. I saw him immediately. He saw me too. Gave a subtle nod. We both understood the game. Eric didn't notice. He was too busy talking to old friends about his success, about his house, about his kids, about his career. I positioned myself near the bar, waited, knew it would happen eventually. Eric approached, drink in hand, confidence radiating. Having fun? Yeah, good to see everyone. What have you been telling people about your job? Just that I work for the government. He laughed. Classic Sarah, so humble. You should own it more. You work for the government. That's respectable. It's not private sector money, but it's stable. That's worth something. I appreciate that. I mean it. I know I give you a hard time sometimes, but what you're doing is fine. It's just a different path. Not everyone has to chase the big money and the big challenges. Some people value security. There's no shame in that. There it was. The condescension wrapped in false support. The implication that I'd chosen the easy path. The safe path. the less ambitious path. You're right, I said. I do value security. National security specifically. He missed it completely. Exactly. And that's what government jobs are about. Contributing to the system. It might not be as exciting as what I do, but someone has to do it. Colonel Patterson was walking over. I saw him. Eric didn't. Tell me about this Air Force contract, I said. You mentioned it's complex work. Eric's face lit up. This was his favorite topic. Oh man, it's incredible. We're basically rebuilding their entire intelligence infrastructure. Working with the Special Programs Office. These are serious operations. The kind of stuff that actually matters for national security. Sounds important. It is. We'll be interfacing with some really senior people. I'm talking colonels, maybe even flag officers. People who make decisions at the highest levels. Colonel Patterson was 10 feet away now, walking directly toward us. Must be challenging working with military leadership, I said. Oh, it is. They have their own culture, their own way of doing things. You kind of have to know how to navigate it. Fortunately, my boss is former Marine Corps, so he gets it. Actually, he's here tonight. Went to this same high school. Colonel Patterson? Eric looked surprised. You know him? We've met. Professional circles. Right. Government job. Makes sense. He probably works with your office on contracts or something. Not quite, but close enough. Still working that government job? Eric said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. Performing again, making sure everyone knew the dynamic. Must be nice having all that job security. No real pressure to perform. Colonel Patterson was directly behind him now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Public sector has its place. Somebody's got to push papers, right? It's just not the same as real business. Real competition. Real achievement. The colonel stopped. Stood at attention. Some of us chose the hard path. Building something. Creating value. Making real money. But hey, your pension will be nice. Colonel Patterson saluted. Eric's voice stopped. He turned. Saw his boss saluting his little sister. The silence was profound. Everyone nearby had stopped talking, stopped moving. Everyone was watching. Colonel Patterson, I said, returning the salute. Good to see you, sir. How's the new position? Excellent, Lieutenant Colonel Davis. Though I should be asking you that question. Congratulations on the promotion. Well deserved. Eric looked like he'd been hit with a brick. Lieutenant Colonel? Just got pinned last month, I said casually. Oh, 5. It's a good move. More responsibility, but I'm ready for it. Colonel Patterson smiled. More than ready. Your work on the theater intelligence operations has been exceptional. The briefing you gave last month to the Joint Chiefs was one of the best I've seen. Thank you, sir. I had a good team supporting me. Eric was staring, mouth slightly open, not blinking. I didn't realize you two were siblings, Colonel Patterson said, gesturing to Eric. Eric here is one of my top business development managers, doing excellent work on the Air Force contract. Why no? I said. I was consulted on the requirements for that program, provided technical input. Eric made a choking sound. Were you? Colonel Patterson looked interested. That explains why some of the requirements were so precisely aligned with operational needs. I wondered who'd drafted those specifications. I was part of the working group. Couldn't discuss it at the time. Classification, of course. Well, your input was valuable. We're going to deliver a solid product. I'm sure you will, sir. Colonel Patterson turned to Eric. You didn't mention your sister was in the Air Force. I didn't know she was a lieutenant colonel. Really? She's had quite the career. Intelligence officer, multiple deployments, currently overseeing operations for an entire theater. One of the brightest strategic minds in her field. The Air Force is lucky to have her. Eric looked at me. Really looked at me. Like he was seeing me for the first time. You oversee operations for a theater? CENTCOM, I said. Central Command. Middle East and Central Asia. My team handles intelligence analysis and dissemination for the entire region. Your team. How big is your team? 42 people. Mix of military and civilian analysts. We support operations across 7 countries. Colonel Patterson nodded. And she's being modest. Her work directly supports combat operations. Every day. Lives depend on the intelligence her team produces. Eric was very pale. I had no idea. How would you? I asked. You never asked. You just assumed. You said you worked for the government. I do. The Department of Defense. In uniform. I've been in the Air Force for 14 years. You knew that. You just never asked what I did in the Air Force. You never told me. I couldn't tell you. Most of what I do is classified. I can't discuss it. But you assumed that meant it wasn't important, that it was just paperwork, just bureaucracy, just a safe government job. People were gathering now. Old high school friends, people who'd heard Eric talk about his successful career, people who'd heard him subtly dismiss my government job all night. They were all watching. Lieutenant Colonel, Eric said weakly. That's a high rank. It's 05. Below Colonel, above Major. About halfway up the officer ranks. I'm on track for Colonel in 3 to 4 years. If I continue performing well. And you brief the Joint Chiefs? On occasion, when my area of responsibility is relevant to strategic decisions. It's part of the job. Colonel Patterson excused himself politely. I'll let you two catch up. Lieutenant Colonel, we should connect next month. I'd like your input on some technical specifications for Phase 2 of the contract. Happy to help, sir. Have your office reach out to mine. He walked away. Eric and I stood in silence. You have an office, Eric said. It wasn't a question, just a statement of something he was realizing. I have a staff, and an office, and a security detail when I travel to certain locations, and a queue clearance with SCI access, and a lot of responsibilities that I can't discuss in detail. Why didn't you tell me? I did tell you. Over and over. Every time you asked about my job, I tried to explain. You just didn't listen. You'd already decided what my career was. Safe, easy, unimpressive. Why bother learning details? You thought I'd taken the easy path, that I'd chosen security over ambition, that I was making do with a mediocre government salary and counting down to my pension. What do you make? He asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. Sorry, that's inappropriate. Base salary is $98,000 as an 05, plus housing allowance, hazard pay when deployed, and various other benefits. Total compensation package is about $130,000. More when I'm deployed. More than Eric made. He realized it too. His face showed it. But it's not about the money, I continued. It's about the work, the mission, serving something bigger than myself. I know, I thought I was doing something important too. The defense contractor work, supporting the military. You are. The contract your company won is important. The systems you're building matter. But you talked about it like it was more important than what I do. More challenging. More real. I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you just were wrong? He didn't have an answer for that. More people had gathered. Word was spreading. Eric's little sister is a lieutenant colonel. Eric's little sister briefs generals. Eric's little sister's job is actually more impressive than his. Someone from our graduating class approached. Sarah, I heard you're in the Air Force? That's so cool. What do you do? I'm an intelligence officer. I oversee analysis and operations for Central Command. Wow, that sounds intense. It can be, but it's rewarding. And you're a lieutenant colonel? That's a high rank, right? It's senior leadership. Not at the top yet, but getting there. They looked at Eric. And you work together? On the same team? No, I said. Eric works for a defense contractor. They support the military, but they're not military. Different worlds, but important work, the person said diplomatically. Very important, I agreed. The military couldn't function without contractor support. Different roles, both necessary. Eric looked relieved. I was giving him an out, a way to save face. But then he opened his mouth.
I just wish I'd known. I've been giving you career advice for years, telling you to transition to private sector, and you're already doing more important work than I am.
The relief evaporated. He'd said it out loud, admitted it in front of everyone. I don't think it's about more or less important, I said carefully. Just different.
No, you were right earlier. I dismissed what you do. I assumed it was lesser. I was wrong.
At least he was being honest. The rest of the reunion was awkward. People kept approaching me with questions about my career, about the Air Force, about deployments and operations, and everything I couldn't really discuss in detail. Eric stayed nearby, but quiet, nursing his drink, processing. When the event wound down, he caught my arm. Can we talk? Just the two of us? We walked outside, stood in the hotel parking lot under fluorescent lights. I'm sorry, he said. Really sorry. I've been a complete ass for years. Yeah, you have. I thought I'd done you. Made better choices. I was proud of myself, and I needed you to be the comparison, the safe choice, the easy path, so I could feel good about my hard path. I know. You deserved better. From me. From the family. You've been serving your country, leading people, making real decisions, and I've been acting like you settled for mediocrity. The thing is, Eric, I never needed you to be impressed. I never needed validation. I know what I do matters. I know the lives I impact. I know the value of my work. Your opinion of it didn't change any of that. Then why tell me now? Good question. Why had I orchestrated this? Why set up the revelation? Because I wanted you to stop, I said honestly. Stop the condescension. Stop the pity. Stop acting like you'd figured out life and I was still struggling. I didn't need you to be impressed. I just needed you to stop being dismissive. I'm sorry. I know. But sorry doesn't undo 14 years of you treating me like I'd failed. How do I fix it? You start by actually asking. About my life. About my work. About what I do day to day. Not assuming, not dismissing. Just asking and listening. I can do that. Can you? Or are you just saying that because you're embarrassed? He thought about it. Honestly, I don't know. I want to say I can, but I've been doing this for so long, assuming I know better, assuming I'm more successful. It's a habit. Then break the habit. How? Stop talking and start listening. Stop assuming and start asking. Stop measuring my success by your metrics and recognize that different paths have different measures. He nodded. I'll try. Trying isn't enough. Either you do it or you don't. You sound like a military officer. I am a military officer. Have been for 14 years. That's who I am. We stood in silence for a moment. Then Eric asked, Can I ask you something? About your work? Depends on the question. What's it like? Briefing the Joint Chiefs, being responsible for a whole region, making decisions that impact combat operations. It was the first time he'd asked an actual question about my work in years. It's terrifying, I said honestly. Every day. Because you know the stakes. You know people's lives depend on your analysis being right, your team being prepared, your intelligence being accurate. How do you handle that pressure? Training, experience, and a team I trust. I don't do it alone. Nobody does. Your boss, Colonel Patterson, He talked about you briefing the Joint Chiefs. How often does that happen? Few times a year. When my area of responsibility is relevant to strategic decisions. Or when we have significant intelligence that needs senior leadership awareness. That's incredible. It's part of the job. Do you like it? The military? The career? Another real question. I love it. Not every day. Some days are hard. Some assignments are harder. But overall, I can't imagine doing anything else. Really? Really. I'm serving my country, incredible people, working on problems that actually matter, making decisions that have real impact. What's not to love? The deployment, the danger, the bureaucracy, those are real, but they're worth it, at least to me. He looked at me with something like awe. I don't think I could do what you do. You don't have to. You're doing what you're meant to do. Building things, supporting the mission from a different angle. That matters too. But it's not the same. No, it's not. And that's okay. Different roles, different contributions. Both necessary. We talked for another 20 minutes. Real conversation. Real questions. Real interest. It felt strange. Foreign. We'd never talked like this before. When we finally said goodbye, Eric hugged me. Thank you. For what? For not completely destroying me in there? You could have. You had every right to. Colonel Patterson basically handed you the ammunition. But you were gracious. I didn't do it to destroy you. I did it to stop you from dismissing me. Mission accomplished. I drove home that night feeling lighter. Not triumphant, just relieved. I'd finally been seen. Not as little sister, not as the safe choice younger sibling, but as Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Davis, intelligence officer, leader, professional. That was 6 months ago. My way you to do that they remember note of the day. My relationship with Eric has improved significantly. He asks real questions now, shows genuine interest, stopped giving me career advice. He still struggles sometimes, still slips into old patterns, still measures success in private sector terms. But he's trying, and that's more than he was doing before. The family knows now, too. My parents finally understand what I do. They're proud. Actually proud. Not polite proud. Real proud. My promotion to lieutenant colonel helped. Hard to dismiss 05. Hard to pretend it's not a significant achievement. But the real change was Eric admitting he'd been wrong. In front of people. In front of our old classmates. In front of his boss. That took guts. I respect that. Here's what I learned. Some people will never see your worth until someone they respect validates it. They'll dismiss your achievements, minimize your success, treat you as lesser. Not because you failed, but because they need you to be lesser to feel better about themselves. My brother needed me to be the safe choice so he could be the ambitious one. Needed me to be mediocre so he could be exceptional. Needed me to fail so he could succeed. But I didn't fail. I just succeeded in ways he couldn't see. And when his boss saluted me, when Colonel Patterson validated what I'd been saying for years, Eric couldn't ignore it anymore. The validation didn't come from me. It came from someone he respected, someone in a position of authority, someone whose opinion he valued. That's what finally made him see. Not ideal. I would have preferred he believed me, trusted me, seen my worth without external validation. But I'll take it, because now he knows. Now the whole family knows. And I don't have to hide anymore. Don't have to be vague. Don't have to minimize my achievements to make others comfortable. Who I am. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Davis. I oversee intelligence operations for CENTCOM. I brief senior leaders. I make decisions that impact real operations. I lead incredible people doing critical work. And my brother finally knows it.